Today we're making Chai Gruit. Hi, I'm Brian.
I'm Derica, and you're watching City Steading. To learn to grow and brew, and to take control of your food, hit subscribe now, and continue the conversation with us by joining our Facebook group, checking out our Facebook page, our web page, our Instagram account, and if you really want to help us out, please be a patron on Patreon.
That list keeps getting longer and longer and longer.
We're everywhere.
Yeah, it's kind of scary. Anyhow, today we're making Chai Gruit. Now, if you don't know what Gruit is, we actually did a video a while back where we tasted one that I made because I made it off camera. I don't really remember. Was it like before we started City Steading? Say that 3 times fast. That I made that video.
I think it was at the very beginning, and this was a test subject, but it's the I am Groot video.
Too well. Gruit, if you don't know what it is a very old-timey version of beer, okay? Today, beer is made with barley most times and hops most times after some law in Germany that we're not going to talk about. It's mostly political reasons why it is the way it is, okay? That's just like anything else. But Gruit was before then. It was when they made it with, usually with barley, but it could be brown sugar. It could be almost any sugar or sweetener or things like that. And what they used for bittering was usually herbs, different types of bark and stuff like that. And I'm serious, they actually used bark. Whatever bitterings. It was more like the medicinal type of beer, but modern beer actually, I think, came out of it. So the basic difference between a Gruit and a beer today is beer is hopped, Gruit is not. Okay? So we're going to make a Chai Gruit, which is going to have cinnamon and star anise and fennel seed and cardamom and other things that I can't even think of right now. But all those things are tannins as well as bittering agents and heavy flavors. So if you've ever had chai tea, which, just so you're aware, chai tea is the same thing as saying tea. Chai means tea. Chai is all these different flavors and things like that, and they're just really, really rich, and I thought that mixed with the barley and the sweetness might be a really awesome Gruit. So a lot of people have been asking for this. We're going to do it. The first step, now this is an all grain brew, by the way. There's boiling bag, there's all grain, and then there's extracts. I never really did extracts. I mean, I think I did one, right? It was a kit.
It was the weird kit.
That weird kit that didn't give me any instructions. Yeah, that one was an extract. I didn't like that at all. And after that, I just did all grains. There's no reason not to. I'm only making a gallon, so it's not a huge deal. But even if I was making 5 gallons, we have pots for that. It's not a big deal. Another thing that's come up is a lot of people seem to think you need specialized equipment and all this crazy stuff. This is the most specialized equipment you're going to need to make this. Maybe a hydrometer, auto siphon, I don't know, maybe a strainer. That's really about it. So here's how we start. What you want to do is called mashing in, okay? I may use these terms wrong, but this is how I'm calling it, and it's my show, so that's what it's going to be. What? Yeah, it's like that. I'm joking mostly. It is called to mash in. And what we're actually doing is we're taking our barley, right? That's what this is. It's crushed barley. This is crushed 2-row barley, if you were curious. I chose that just because it's the most common, easiest to get, your basic barley malt for any beer. Okay, so it's a very common thing, and that's why I chose it. I have 2 pounds of it here. I measured it early, so you didn't have to watch me pour it because it just makes a big cloud of dust everywhere. What we're going to do, though, is there's enzymes in the barley that are going to convert the starches in the barley into sugars that we can ferment. So that's what mashing does. You want to do it anywhere from like 145 to about 160 degrees. There's some variances there. I'm looking for 158, and there's a reason why that exact number. What I want to do is, at that number, it makes a more full-bodied type of thing. If you go a little lower, not all of the starches turn into dextrines, I think is the word, and that way it makes for a lighter beer. Science, it's a thing. But first, I'm going to dump all this into my pot. Carefully so as to not, yep, see that? That's not smoke. That's just dust. They get stirred up with dust. And I'm done with that. Okay, so we have our barley in. Next, I'm going to pour water in. This is about a gallon, and because I know we're going to lose some to evaporation, I don't mind using pretty much the whole gallon. Plus, this is 2 pounds of barley. It's going to get sticky quick. Let me mix that up a little bit and get the heat going here. It smells like cereal. It actually doesn't smell bad at all. That's one thing I've always liked about brewing beer is it smells so much different than you think it should. It actually smells good. For a long time I didn't really like beer. I'm going to put most of this water in. There we go. I just want it to break up a bit. I like using this handy dandy candy thermometer. Handy dandy candy thermometer. I like that. And again, I'm looking for 158 degrees. At 158 degrees I'm going to take it off the heat and I'm going to put the lid on it and I'm just going to let it sit for about an hour. Okay? Okay, so I overshot the mark just a little bit. It's about 2 degrees over. Not a big deal, not the end of the world. It's still well within range. At this point, you want to make sure you get as much as you can off that spoon. I'm going to hand this to my lovely assistant who doesn't know what to do with it right now. I'm going to take my thermometer out, get as much of that off as I can too. I'm going to put the lid on it. And this sits for 1 hour, okay? I don't want to touch it. I don't want to stir it. What's happening is all those starches are being converted to sugars. This will be a very sticky, very sweet thing when it's done. A lot of the water did boil out. I did pour in just a little bit extra as it was going. But soon, we'll show you the next step.
Well, it's sitting, you don't want it on heat.
No, you don't want to leave it on the heat. You want to maintain the temperature. So, I mean, if you click it on and click it off a little bit, you can. I generally don't worry about it that much. It's going to drop in temperature, probably by like almost 10 degrees. It's still well within mashing range. You can mash this for an hour, you can mash this for an hour and a half if you want to. Doesn't really matter. For a Gruit, I try not to be super technical. These things were made like 2,000 years ago. So, you know, thermometers and things like that didn't exist. We just do the best we can with it. So don't get crazy, just let it go. You can wrap it in a blanket if you want to help keep it warm, which we might do that. This pot isn't real good at keeping temperature, and it's kind of a cool day today. So, see you in an hour. Okay, so it's been an hour. This is our mash. It maintained the temperature pretty much down to a couple of degrees, so this is beautiful. At this point, what we're going to do is called sparging, okay? Actually, it's not sparging. This is straining, then sparging. What we want to do is remove all the solids from this. So we're going to pour through one of these guys, but this isn't going to catch it. So I actually have one of these strainers in the top here, right? I'm going to try to pour that through, hopefully without burning myself or Derica or anyone involved. This could get crazy. You ready?
I'm ready.
This is why we don't do a lot of beer and Gruit videos. There's a lot of steps to it, a lot of processes involved, and it gets rather difficult to videotape the process of doing it. But we're going to try. Now, as this comes out, yes, the liquid is straining off, and that's a good thing. That is exactly what we want. But there's still a lot of sugars attached to this grain. That's why I brought over the second one. We can swap them out. I'm about halfway through. That's about half the grains, but notice how full that got already. So I'm going to put this over this pitcher and let that sit while I strain some more through this guy. It's okay to pack it a little bit if you want. Okay, we might have to swap again. Just a little bit left. Somebody's going to tell me about a better way. I'm sure there is. Have bigger containers, you know, stuff like that. I don't have specialized equipment for making beer. I just don't. I never found a need for it. For us, we don't make a lot of it, to be honest. You know, I make maybe 5 gallons a year because that covers us, 50 bottles, you know. I don't drink a lot of beer. Actually, I think the last time I made it lasted, what, almost 4 months, 5 months? That was with Terry coming over and handing some off to people, and we're good. Okay, now, I'm gonna put this to the side. The next thing that we're going to do is, this is the actual sparge. Sparging is when you're rinsing off the grains, getting all that excess sugar off. So I have some hot water here. It's off the boil. It's not actually 200 degrees or anything like that. It's just warm, 150, 160 degrees. Some people say you can do it with cold water. Some people say it has to be boiling water. I just use water. I'm using about the same temperature water that we have here, and I'm literally just giving it a rinse. There's various ways to do this. You can add a lot more water if you want to. You can add a lot less water if you want to. It's totally, really, yep. I used about half of it for this. And then we're gonna put this over here. Now, the reason if you notice, I have 2 pitchers or 2 containers catching all this liquid. This is the stuff you want. All this liquid coming out. That's what you want to keep, okay? That's your wort, is exactly what that is. We're gonna add some spices to it, and then we're gonna boil it soon. But I just wanted to do this sparge, get some of the excess liquids out. Now remember, the more water you add, the more you're diluting it. Obviously, yeah, the more volume you're going to get, but if you dilute it too much, you're not going to get enough sugars, and it's just not going to work. If you don't dilute it enough, then when you get the water that boils off when in the next step, then you don't have enough, and it's a thing. So I'm going to let these drain for a minute. But while they're draining, I want to explain a couple things about doing an all grain method for beer. With meads and wines, you can say this much sugar is this much gravity. With beer, especially all grain, actually, when you're doing all grain, it's not quite so simple because there's things called efficiency. My efficiency is probably at best 75%. I know it's not all that high, and I am okay with that. It doesn't matter to me. This stuff is not expensive. It's like $1.25 or $1.50 a pound. So I got $3 worth of barley here. Not really a big deal to me. If I needed to get more sooner, you know, it's okay. But generally speaking, at 100% efficiency, 2-row barley, such as this, produces 38 points of gravity, or 0.038 points of gravity per pound in a gallon of water, okay? At 75% efficiency, it's 25 points. That's what I'm gauging this off of. So I'm expecting my final gravity to be somewhere around 1050, okay, which gives me like a 6.5% Gruit. I'm happy with that. That's pretty cool. I mean, I don't need anything higher than that. These things I don't really drink for the alcohol, I drink for the flavors. Getting a little buzz is nice, but that's not really what I'm after. Okay, so now that these are stopped draining, I can hear it, there's no more dripping. We're gonna reset all of this, get the spices ready. All right, so now is the time that we want to get our spices together. And the spices we're going to use for this are ginger, cardamom pods, fennel seeds, whole cloves, whole cinnamon stick, whole star anise, and my favorite, allspice berries. There's a lot of different ways to blend for chai. This is just the ones that I chose to do, and I'm going to give you the amounts that I think are right. If I had experimented with this 50 different times, I might make it 50 different ways. Sometimes you like a little more cinnamon, sometimes you want a little more fennel. It all depends. So do this a little bit to taste. Use what I gave you as a guide. I wouldn't go drastically different unless you really know what flavors you're getting into, because chai can go really super nasty really quick.
Nasty would not be the term that I would use. Potent would be the word I would use. We drink an awful lot of tea in this house, and as far as the chai version, we probably have roughly 5 different pre-made chais.
But I've made my own too.
In our house right now, and we've made our own multiple times, so there is no right or wrong way. You just basically want these kind of herbs, and
I don't like licorice, but that smells
like
really good.
anise and fennel both give off kind of a licorice flavor. We're not
Well, fennel does. Fennel seed, not so much.
we're not overly excited about licorice flavors, so we might go a little lighter on those, where
Well, the star anise smells pretty
somebody
good.
who really likes licorice might want to go a little heavy. This is totally going to be up to your taste.
Yeah.
If you aren't familiar with chai, I suggest
Getting some, trying it.
trying some chai out and see what you like. Try different types and look at the ingredients and say, oh, I really enjoyed the cinnamon in this one, or I enjoyed the star anise, or whatever, and then make your own brew.
Now, one thing that is not going to be in this is the tea, which is kind of ironic because I'm making a Chai Gruit, right? But I thought about it and I was like, the tea, in this case, we don't need it. There's a lot of bitterings, there's a lot of tannic type of things. The barley itself is sweet but has some tannins too. I don't think the tea would be necessary, and I think it might actually push it too far over the edge. So it's a chai flavoring like thing.
When you're flavoring beer in general, regardless of whether it's a Gruit or a traditional hopped beer, there are three things that you really want to think about for the additions beyond your barley
I love that you do
must.
this now.
One of them is bittering. We definitely have bittering agents here. That's why we're not adding the tea, because the tea in this particular brew would just be a bittering agent. Another one is aromatics, something that's going to give a pleasant odor. We know that
Everything.
everything pretty much is going to give a really awesome odor. So we got our aromatics
Aroma.
covered. And the third is flavorants. Duh.
We're covered.
We're good. These are spices. That's their job, is to flavor things.
In all honesty, Gruit, even without other flavorings in there, tastes pretty good. It's actually not bad, even without the bittering. So I'm just going to chop up this ginger. No, I didn't peel it. Why? Because I'm lazy and because it's coming out. It's just going to be in there. Basically, the way you make beer and Gruit and all that is you're making one big tea for a long time. And then you ferment it. And by tea, I mean something that is steeped, something that is boiled, that kind of thing, like an herbal tea kind of deal. It comes out kind of like that. You'll see. You'll see. It'll all make sense. Just trust me. Okay, so the way I'm going to do it too is, see, we got this nice piece of cheesecloth here. Everything goes in the cheesecloth. Star anise.
And this is another reason why we're using the whole herbs rather than pre-ground herbs. One of the reasons is that whole herbs tend to be more pungent. And because we're steeping this, we want to be able to remove the solids. The whole herbs are gonna, or spices are going to help with that. Whereas if it was ground, we might end up with a muddy mess that we can't easily remove from our beer. Fruit.
Yeah, we were going to have to do ground because I couldn't find cardamom pods. And I was wondering, okay, how am I going to do that?
But we found them! Yay!
Okay, so that was 2 whole star anise. Yeah, duh. 2 whole cinnamon sticks. These guys, allspice berries. To me, this is the essence of what chai tea smells like.
Yeah.
So, and they're also a little bit licoricey, but not too much. I'm going to do, what's that, maybe a tablespoon?
Yeah.
If that. Fennel seeds. These are what makes Italian sausage smell good. But they also have that unique, almost a licoricey, but not quite. I'm going with maybe a teaspoon on these. I don't want to overpower it with these. Whole cloves. Cloves are the easiest way to destroy anything. Because they are so small. I mean, look at this. That's a clove. That's it. But they're so pungent. And this is going to boil for an hour. I'm going to do that many. That's it.
You're brave.
Well, they're not going to get broken up much.
Okay.
I am going to give, yeah, I know. I am going to give everything a little crush before we do it. Okay, it should have a little kick. And then cardamom pods. These are another. It's an element that goes into the tastes of chai, and that's why there's so many.
They're almost lemony.
Yeah, they have a little bit of a citrus kind of thing to them with, I want to say licorice. Again, just that touch of it. I'm only going with like 5. You don't need a lot. These are going to get broken a little bit too. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap these up real good. Real good. Something like that. I don't know how good I wrapped them. Not good at all. Let's do that again.
I was wondering about that.
All right, then you do it. I'll go get the mallet. When in doubt, violence is the answer. I'm joking, just for stuff like this.
We got the violence as the answer.
It's from a movie.
Saying, actually, from my dad.
It's from a movie.
My dad
He stole it from a movie.
says it all the time.
Scoot over.
And it's really kind of funny
over.
because he's probably the most non-violent person ever.
I'm also a very non-violent person. I almost got it out. What are you doing?
Here's your bundle.
Oh, I was just gonna tie it.
It's tied.
Giving them a light tap with the hammer because some of them will actually come right through the cheesecloth.
I was wondering about that.
Well, it's all right. See, they didn't actually come through, but I just wanted to break them up a little bit. This is going to go into our wort, then we're going to boil it. Be right back. Okay, so here's where we're at. We have our wort. This has been mashed. It has been sparged. It smells... Oops, sorry. It smells cereally, a little sweet. There's a good flavor going on there. We have our herbs and our spices that we lightly crushed and put into a cheesecloth bouquet garni thing. Although that'd be just tied together. Anyway, so we have all of our spices in here. I'm going to drop this unceremoniously into the pot. It's going to soak in, okay? The idea is those are our bittering agents for the beer. Now, when you're making beer, you do a boil. We are starting up the boil now. You boil it for a full hour. Generally speaking, you have like a 60-minute edition, a 30-minute edition, and a 5-minute edition of hops when you're making a beer. Gruit is like beer.
And that coordinates to what I was talking about, the three elements before, the bittering, the aromatics, and the flavorants.
Yep. For a Gruit, you want to keep it simpler. So I'm just going to put it in for the whole length of time. I'm treating it more like an herbal tea agent. I want all those flavors, everything to get in there all at once. It's going to bitter it, it's going to flavor it, and it's going to give off a lot of aroma.
You do have the option to divide it up into the three different elements if you wish. It's not necessary, but if you feel like doing research and finding out which of those spices was really going to add the bittering, or then you can divide it. But
to me, though, now you're making a beer. A Gruit is meant to be a little more primitive, a little simpler, so that's why I don't like to do it. It's a tradition thing.
he's making stuff up again because we did it that way when we did the first Gruit.
Yeah, but I didn't do a video on that, so they don't know that. Shh. Now, you can do it a lot of different ways. For this one, I actually wanted to make this recipe as simple as possible so that people could follow along. You can make this super complicated. You can do all this crazy stuff. Why? I just don't do it. I just want a good end product, and as long as I can get there in a reasonable amount of time, that's what I'm going to do. So we're going to bring this to a boil, 60 minutes. See you in an hour. Okay, so this is our wort, and this is off the boil, and it has cooled, and it's sticky at the top because it's sticky. A lot of people go out and they buy wort chillers and things like that. I've never really found the point. First, you don't really have to chill your wort that fast. I have let it just sit and come to room temperature and then pursued ahead, and it worked out just fine. I've never found any weird things that can happen. The worst I can see is maybe some sort of infection that people are worried about, but I don't know. It's so hot. I can't imagine that happening. But anyway, my method is so simple as to be almost silly. I put cold water in my bathtub to about that high, use an oversized pot, stick it in there. It cooled off in like 10 minutes.
Then we close the door so the cats can't
Oh
get in
yeah,
there.
no cats playing in the wort. That's just not good. But really, I used a much larger pot than what we have. It's only filled to maybe like here, and this is a 6-gallon pot. Now, if I did have to make 6 gallons, yeah, it would take a little longer to cool off, and I might even throw some ice packs in the water or something, and I'd put more like this much water, but it was almost floating. So there's really no reason, and don't go crazy. If you don't have this stuff, try this. If you really like making beer and you really want to make it convenient for yourself, by all means, go for that if you really want to do it. I make beer like literally, what, 3-4 times a year?
Yeah.
For me, it's not worth it. We make a lot more meads and wines and things like that, so we haven't bothered.
This is also an aluminum pot, so
it dissipates heat really fast.
Yeah, what he said.
This is actually our canner. It's a pressure cooker canner. But anyway, moving on. The bag that was in here, I'll be honest, this is take 2 of this part of the video, and I already threw it away. Camera batteries went dead in the middle of the shoot. So I've already taken the bag out. Here's what I did. I took it out, I squeezed it. Derica said, go clean up. I threw it in the garbage, and then the camera died. Sort of, kind of. But whatever, we've realized it was dead. So what we have here is our wort, which is really just the liquid. I'm going to pour it through a strainer. There might be a couple of solids that came through, and we're going to put it in this pitcher. Then we're going to pour it into our fermenter. Carboy, whatever you want to call it.
Am I splashing?
How am I splashing?
Because it's coming out the bag.
Wasting wort. Alright, so after boiling and after everything, see that? We only got half a gallon of wort. So what I'm going to end up doing is adding water to this. I'm afraid to do that though, because what I want to do first is take a reading on this. Because if this is not a high enough gravity to make it work, then I got to make a half gallon. And this shows you another mistake that can be made. I really should have used a lot more water, but you know, as I said, I only make beer like 4 times a year. So I'm going to take a reading. If this is high enough, then I can dilute it, no problem. And that's probably what's going to happen, because as the water evaporates, the sugar concentrates. So there's not less sugar in this than there was before. There's just less liquid than there was before. So we'll find out how efficient my extraction mash was. By the way, this smells pretty cool. It smells like cereally chai. It's unique. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Okay, so this is reading, oh wow, that's pretty good. About 1080. There's a lot of bubbles here. So that means if I cut this in half, I'd get 1040. I don't think I even need to cut it in half. But that's pretty good. I'm happy with that. I'm going to take another reading after we get it into the bottle. So if you would put that in there, please. I want to taste this. It's good to taste your wort. You should know what you're getting into. It doesn't look real pretty. It looks kind of all brown and gray, but the smell on it is amazing though, because it really does have that chai spice smell. Oh wow. Tastes like chai tea. It really does. With a little bit of a cereally note to it. Yeah, that's going to be good. Alrighty. May I have the funnel, please? Now you saw what she just did. She grabbed the funnel, put it in the sanitizer water. Now she's rinsing it out. Oh, well, wiping, tapping it off in the bottle. Here we go. Oh!
So you're adding water? See?
I forgot the first rule. Hydrate your yeast. Today I'm going to use Safe Ale SO4. This is actually an ale yeast, so I'm using it for the right purpose this time. I'm going to use maybe a third of the packet. I don't really want to use the whole thing just because I'm cheap. I'll put it in the fridge, use it for something else. And I'm going to eyeball it. I did put some of the wort in there as what I'm going to use to hydrate. Ideally, I'd want to, it's going to need tape. Yep. Ideally, I'd want to let this sit for like 10 minutes or so. I'm not going to make you suffer through all that in a video. So we're just going to sit it there for a minute or two. I am going to pour this into the bottle, see how far it goes up. I'm not real worried about adding oxygen at this point. It's actually a good thing. That's pretty full. I'm going to take a break and get some water. We'll fill that up some more. And go about there. In my experience, beers tend to be overly powerful in their fermentations, so I'm not going to go too crazy with that. But for now, what I'm going to do Oh, I don't even know why I took that out. I'm going to pitch our yeast, then I'm going to take another reading. Because I really kind of want to know where this is at, and just get an idea when it'll be done. For some reason, these kind of things usually go a lot faster than my typical ferments. Just going to put a little bit more water in here, rinse that out, get all that yeast out of there. Like, this could be done in 5 days. I did a beer once that literally, it was like 4 days in, done. Saved it. Would you hold that for me, please? So I don't drop it again. So I'm just going to take one more quick reading here, just to see where we're at. I'm guessing.
Do you need the funnel anymore?
No, I don't need the funnel. I'm guessing it's going to be something like 1040, which is perfectly fine. I mean, that gives something in the 5% range for a beer. It's a pretty reasonable alcohol level for a beer. And yeah, we're at 1046. That's pretty respectable for a beer. So let's put that back in the sanitizer. I'm pouring this back in. Why? Everything's been sanitized. It's okay. People have given me a hard time about that. I don't know why you'd want to waste it. I mean, yeah, it's only 100 mils, but why waste it? Okay, what I want to do now, can I have the stopper off of that, please? Just be careful, I've broken those. That's the downside to the bubble type airlock. I have broken the bottoms off in the stopper before. I'm going to give this a really good shake. You can totally see how those herbs, or the spices I should say, actually colored this. It's going to be a really interesting color when it's done. It might not be the most pretty color, but it'll be interesting. It tastes really nice already, so I can only imagine once this ferments how well this is going to taste. Gave that a good shake. A little more. Alrighty. Stick the airlock in there if you would, please. We're going to mark this up 1046 AB, or 1046 OG or SG, however you like to say it, starting gravity or original gravity. And I'll let this go for probably a week, and we'll do a follow-up video where we rack it, bottle it, and then we'll carbonate it, and then we'll do a final taste test in probably a few weeks. But for now, thanks guys. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching. Don't forget, if you want to learn to grow and brew and take control of your food, hit the subscribe icon down below, and don't forget to hit that little bell. That way you get notified of everything we do. And if you really like what we do, consider becoming a patron. Information in the descriptions of all of our videos. Thanks guys, have a great day.
When I was cooking, it kind of reminded me of Christmas. I think this camera just died.